Hi gaming guys, and welcome to another special Projects Replica build, and this particular replica is of a vehicle which is from a company that I absolutely adore. I love Spyker cars. I love vehicles that are different, that don't care what people think, they're just completely unique in both style and not just the visual style, but mechanical style as well, the way they go about building the car. And Spykers are very much so unique in that regard. They're similar to Koenigsegg and Pagani in that they offer basically a totally unique take on the exotic car market. And on Gran Turismo 6, the Spyker is a fast car. It's light, it doesn't have a huge amount of power, but what it does with the power that it's given is very impressive. It's a popular choice of track car and straight line missile. Now the particular vehicle that we're replicating is based on the C8, appropriately, but it's a rarer, more powerful, faster model, and it's called the C8 12S. Now in real life it looks almost the same, but in particular the primary difference is that it has an extended rear deck to give it more high-speed stability and improve aerodynamics, in a similar way to long-tail race cars from the Group C era. Now, it's significantly faster than the normal C8 Lavalette. You're looking at over 200 miles per hour, well over in fact. It's got over 600 horsepower, and there are actually different versions of the 12S, ranging from a Stage 1 to a Stage 5, and of course, we're replicating the Stage 5. Now, for the visuals on this particular model, I would recommend basically leaving it stock. The car doesn't have a wing, it has basically the factory fitted rims unless you opt otherwise, and as far as the colour, you could go for any colour you want, so just go for whatever you want. I've opted for ebony black, which comes from the Jaguar S-Type, and I chose that colour because it's even darker than the black that initially comes with the car, and the fact that the car doesn't have the best of graphics means that you've got to kind of make up for that. And ebony is such a dark black on the game that it really makes the car, I think, look even better. Now, that's it for the visuals. It's a very simple one to attain. You don't even have to do that. You can go for whatever colour, as I said. So we'll go over next to the mechanical side of things, and then of course finally take it out to a track, as we always do. Now, as far as the build itself, there are some slightly conflicting reports on the net as far as power and weight, but I've given it the numbers which seem to pop up the most commonly, and that's 612 horsepower in Stage 5 form and 1215 kilos. And one of the reasons for that is because it does also nicely round off to 560 pp with the actual car's quoted numbers. Now, as far as the build itself, I've gone for sports softs because, again, it's more of a street-based build. I've left the brakes stock for the same reason, but you do need to bear in mind that, in particular with the extra weight, it does take a little bit longer to slow down. So you may want to brake a bit earlier, or, of course, you could upgrade those if you want to. As far as suspension, we've lowered the ride height to 90mm, front and rear. Springs have increased to 7 and 675. The dampers and anti-roll I've left on 3. Because you want it to feel better, but you don't want it to feel too good. It's still a street vehicle. You don't want it to feel like a race car. I've gone for neutral camber and tow. You could give it a little bit of camber if you deem it necessary, but I don't personally feel that this car really needs it that much. As far as the gearbox, as you can see, I've opted to leave it stock. And there are two reasons for that. For one thing, I wasn't able to find any differences that there may be between the normal Lavoilette's gearbox and the 12S. Now, there probably are differences, but as I said, I couldn't find them. So, that's one reason. The second reason is the 12S is a faster car, and the stock ratios already give you that kind of speed. In fact, if you take it on Route X and let it just go up through the gears, for instance with an auto box, it settles quite nicely into 6th and just cruises at a low rev at 225 miles per hour. You can go even quicker in 5th gear, and of course, if you're in draft, drop down into 6th and it'll go like a rocket. So it basically just works well with the stock box. Now, as far as the diff, I've opted for halfway on initial torque, as low as possible on acceleration and braking, though of course you could change those if you need to. As far as the power, I have given this car an oil change, and to get the horsepower I would recommend a Stage 3 engine tune, sports computer, the semi-race exhaust, not the full racing exhaust, the manifold, the cat and the intake upgrades, and then reduce the power to 97.5%. And as far as the weight, I would recommend a 145 kilo ballast, which I would also recommend putting 32% towards the back of the car. That brings you to the real car's weight and power, and also rounds it off really nicely to 560 pp. So that's it for the build. Now let's take it out to a track to see what kind of difference it makes to what was already a really good car. Now, one of the problems, of course, with taking a car that's already fantastic and then adding weight is that even with more power, it's not going to feel as good around the track. And that is the case with this vehicle. It's not as quick through corners. As I said, you need to brake a bit earlier. You can feel the weight in corners. But it makes it smoother, I would say. Not as quick, but smoother. And it feels as it should, I think. The extra weight should feel like it's there. And also the fact that the car does have the longer body in real life should change the way it feels to drive. And we can't do that in the game. So you have to make it feel as close to that as we can. Overall, it's very fast in a straight line in particular, and it makes a great cruising car. So for Spyker fans, I think you'll enjoy using it. So if you'd like to keep up with other builds like this, replicas and customs, you can of course subscribe down below to see them as soon as they're released, or check out the playlist at the end of this video for the ones that we've already done. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.